Right, so I'm about to attach the bank control to the foot control. And one thing I notice is that I actually have this backwards. So I need to shift P here and then parent this one to here. And then this needs to be parented to the foot control. Okay, so just got to do the same thing over here. Take this, parent it to here. This gets parented to here. And just run a quick test on it, and it should work. Okay, so now what we're going to do next is we will attach the bank controls that we created, because all these should work. Ball raise, heel raise, heel pivot. Bank should not yet because we haven't attached it. Toe raise and toe pivot. So it's working really well. Now, what I want to do from this point is I wanted to go ahead and I'm going to do something called set driven key. Animation, change your tab to animation, go to key, and set driven key and set. Load driver for the foot control itself, and then for driven, select the joint, load driven. Now we need to find out if I rotate, okay, and then if I rotate here, okay. So it's rotate Z. So on my bank control, I gotta make sure I key it while it's zeroed out on the rotate. Rotate Z under bank key. This way I'll go -50. And then here, under bank, let's go -50. It's gonna snap back. Now, let me explain what just happened. So I was trying to test the controller. I set this to -50 to get an idea of how far I wanted it to rotate. On the controller, I set to -50, but then this snapped back to 0. And that's because we've keyed currently the information on this joint. So you'll notice it turns red, like as if you were to set a keyframe. But we're technically setting a keyframe just in a different manner to create extra controls for our foot control. So I'm going to set this to -50 now. So when the driver is at -50, I'm going to want this to be at -50. And I'm going to click key. And now I'm going to take bank and that middle mouse button click, and I can go to 0 and -50. So right now I'm going to set it to 0. Now I'm going to set my bank to +50, and I'm going to select my rotate on this one. So on my bank, on the out, I have it set at 0 and -50. Now on the in, I'm going to load driven, and it's rotate Z. I'm going to set my bank at 0 and key it. So this is at 0, and then this is at 0, and I'm going to hit key. Now I'm going to set my controller, because I know -50 goes this way. I want to set it to +50. And now I'm going to take this one, and this is going to be +50, and I'm going to hit key. So now my controller should work like so. So one last thing I want to do before I go ahead and move on to the next controller is I'm going to set, I'm going to go to Modify, Edit Attribute, and on Bank has minimum and maximum of -50 and 50. And I'm going to hit Close. And now on my bank control, I'll only be able to go to 50 and -50. So pretty cool little trick there. So now I'm going to do the same thing to this side. I'm going to load my driver, make sure I click on bank, and I'm going to load my driven. So here I have to key it out at 0, and just always double check. rotate Z, key, set this to -50, set this to -50, and press key. And now it'll go from 0 to -50. And it goes over that point because we haven't set a min-maximum on it yet. So now I got that side working. Now I'm going to go to this side. I'm going to load driven and rotate Z, and my bank is at 0. That means this needs to be at 0. On rotate Z, and I'm going to hit key. And now when this is at +50, this is at +50, and I press key, and then I hit close. And now I'm going to set this back to 0, and I'm going to go modify, edit attribute under bank, and I'm going to say has minimum, has maximum, -50, and +50, and I'm going to hit close. And now what we've got is we've got a fully functional foot rig control. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create what is called a pole vector for the knee controls. So with that being said, our foot controls are working. What we're going to do next is I want to create a polygon primitive platonic solid, and I believe it's an octahedron. And I'm going to hit create and see if that's what I'm talking about. Yes, it is. So this is what I'm going to set for my knee control. And the way this works is pretty simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it out into like the middle of nowhere space. And I'm going to create, and where are you? Curve tools, EP curve tool, and I'm going to make it linear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold V for vertex, and I'm going to snap this along each one of the vertices on this shape to create a custom controller. And you can double click, you can click over other objects over the same line. It doesn't make a difference. It's not going to read it as like a whole bunch of verts. It will be totally fine and acceptable. And just make sure you get them all, because otherwise you got to do it again. And that should be good, but I'll do one last check. And now when I press W, it's over here. And what I just did is modify center pivot. And I created my own custom controller off of this shape. I'll delete that. And I'm going to go ahead and snap this over here, scale it down, snap this over to the knee, duplicate it, and I'm going to make it smaller actually too. That's pretty good. Duplicate it, snap it to this knee, select both of them, and drag out. Like so. And you can switch to your side viewport to see where you want them to be placed. I'm going to place them, you don't want them too close, but not too far, so it seems like a decent place for them. And then from this point, I'm going to name them L, knee, CTRL, R, knee, CTRL. I'm going to modify freeze transformations, freeze transformations. I'm going to select the knee controller, shift select the IK handle, and I'm going to go to under rigging, constrain pull vector. Select the knee control, shift select the IK handle on the ankle, constrain pull vector. And now you should see that your knee is controlled by the knee control. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to parent these to our foot controls. So now we've got our character like so with our foot controls. So don't want to hide the skeleton, but we've got a fully functional lower half of the body here working. And while we're at it, let's create one more and just get the lower half of the controls on the feet done. Another thing you can also do is select your IK handles, create layer from selected, IK handles, and I'm going to put IK leg handles and hit save, and I'm just going to hide those for now. With the skeleton, you can't really hide it. And if I hide the visibility, I have my eyes parented to it, so you'll see that they just disappear. So I'm going to turn that back on. And the other thing is that if you do have anything else parented to it, like the teeth, tongue, upper teeth, lower teeth, hair, etc., they'll also disappear. So you need to keep the skeleton visible. You can set it to renderable. This is getting a little bit too far for the moment, but then you would turn off shading, wireframe unshaded, or X-ray joints, excuse me. I'm going to keep them on for now, though. And shading, wireframe unshaded. Ooh. Shading, not X-ray. Okay, shading, wireframe unshaded. All right, so I'm going to turn this back on. So now I've got to do one more controller, and I'm going to just do create NURBS circle, and I'm going to snap this directly to my root control. I'm going to scale it a little bit smaller, and that's going to be my root CTRL. Modify, freeze transformations, and then from now on, if you want to delete anything in your inputs, you have to make sure you do edit, delete all by type non-deformer history, otherwise everything gets messed up. Hide these, hide those. Okay, I just hid my reverse foot joint. Ooh. Add selected object. Add selected object. Okay, so now with my root control, what I'm going to do from here is this root joint, shift select here and parent it. And now your controller will now control this character. The knees will always be pointing forward. So everything from the waist down is now good to go. You can, if I just hide the mesh real quick, with the skeleton, you can just see everything's working just fine. Heel raise, pivot, and I'll turn on the reverse foot joints for this, so you can actually see it. Ball raise, heel pivot, bank. Same thing. Oh, and toe raise and toe pivot. For here, ball raise, heel pivot, bank, and toe raise and toe pivot. Set this to be 0, and now we take a look at this and we have our knee controls shaking left and right. Works all good. We bring this up, our foot control follows it, change it so our knee control goes around, and we're set on that. Now I'm going to keep everything as is right here, but that's the lower half of our character so far. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for next time. Hope you enjoyed.